What's up, PGF Nation? Today, we're breaking down our top 5 running backs and our top 5 edge defenders for the 2025 NFL Draft. We're going to see how our rankings stack up against each other and the consensus rankings out there. Alex, let's get into it. I'm going to start with my number 1 running back, and this surprised a lot of people when I said this on one of our other episodes. Number 1 for me is Omarion Hampton, the running back out of North Carolina. For me, this is a guy that just checks all the boxes for an NFL feature back, prototypical size, speed, tough physical runner. I think he's going to be really good in a zone scheme because he's a one-cut runner and he's elite in pass protection. Alex, who do you got at your number 1 running back in this class?
Well, I mean, I don't want to say I went with the consensus, but I did give credence to Ashton Jeanty, just like most of the talking heads. I guess I agree with them for once. So, yeah, I definitely have Ashton Jeanty number 1. A bowling ball. He bounces off of tackles. He has that MJD approach to things, so he looks wonderful when he gets in the open field. He has a little bit of a breakaway. I don't think he's a burner, but he does have some breakaway speed. You know, the one thing I can say about him, a lot of people said that he can't catch out of the backfield. I like to remind people the previous year he had 43 catches for 569 yards and was 13 yards per catch. He can catch out of the backfield. Their offense and their quarterback dictated the way that he played this year.
Yeah, absolutely. They just didn't throw him the ball much this last season. Elite contact balance, quick feet, great field vision. And like you said, maybe not burning speed, but he does have home run ability. And when he gets into the open field, he can take it the distance. Just an absolute 3-down back. And a guy that I don't think is scheme dependent. So as much as I love Hampton, I think Hampton will thrive in a zone scheme. I don't think it really matters with Jeanty. Even though I have Hampton number 1, it's not by much. These two are definitely the consensus two by most people for a reason. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Who's your number 3 back? And just to tell you guys out here real quick, we have not told each other who we have ranked. So this is all organic here. I don't know who he has at 3, 4, 5, whatever. Same here. He doesn't know who I have. So Alex, I'm going to be interested to see who your number 3 back is in this class.
My number 3 batch is a shifty back, and he's probably not going to be your number 3. He might be he's probably definitely your number 4 or 5. But TreVeyon Henderson out of Ohio State. I like the breakaway speed. I like the versatility of catching out of the backfield. I think he can obviously do more. I see split time, so his numbers don't look as strong as, you know, a lot of the other guys that we'll talk about. So he's splitting time with another guy, Quinshon Judkins, that's definitely up there. Maybe not top 5, but definitely up there. But I think now putting him in a system where he'll be the primary back, I believe you'll be able to see the full array of how you can use him as a weapon on the field. And the shiftiness and the breakaway speed is what I like from him the most.
Yeah, so my number 3 running back, TreVeyon Henderson.
Wow, okay.
And you know, hey, this is what it's like, though. Sometimes you don't tell each other who's going to go where, and you find out that you see a lot of the same things when you watch the tape. Look, I watched a lot of tape on this guy, especially recently. I kind of went back, watched some of those Ohio State games. This guy's a home run hitter, compact frame, balance, toughness, just has that quick first step. And what I really like is quick feet. He can start and stop on a dime. Really quick start stop. And I love the fact that he's a complete player. He can catch out of the backfield. He can run between the tackles. And this guy is the best pass protection running back in this class. Hands down. Absolute stud in pass protection. And that is going to be one of those things that, look, it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but you ask any coach, you ask any quarterback how important that is to have a guy that can really block. This guy is fantastic at picking up blitzers and protecting his quarterback. So I really, really like TreVeyon Henderson. Has a little bit of that Jahmyr Gibbs feel to his game, and I think he's going to be a really good player for somebody day 1. Number 4, Alex, I'm curious to see where do you go here with your 4th running back in this class?
My 4th running back is Caleb Johnson, a truck. A guy, 6'1", 224 pounds, ran a 4.56 40 at the combine, but production. This is a guy that is a bell cow back. Now, people will always talk about, hey, what is he out of the backfield? We're always going to have those conversations. I mean, listen, Did you care about Derrick Henry coming out? And I'm not saying he's Derrick Henry. I knew that before everybody jumps off a bridge. But what I'm talking about is his ability and just be a smash mouth and wear the defense down. Okay, so instead of saying Derrick Henry, how about Marshawn Lynch? He's just going to keep hitting you and hitting you and hitting you and falling forward. And he has the ability to catch out of the backfield this year. I believe he had about 25 catches. So there is that ability. I'm not saying he's going to catch, 60 to 70 catches out the backfield or anything like that. But, I think he can give you 35 to 40, which I think is a good amount for a back of his size. But this is a guy that you're going to want in the fourth quarter when your team is up. You're just going to want him to wear down that defense where they don't want to tackle him by the time you get to the fourth quarter.
Yeah, really good player. And it's interesting because this running back class is so loaded that there are so many guys that I feel like in other years would have been top 5 guys that are kind of getting pushed back because it's such a good class. I didn't have him in my top 5, but he was just outside of my top 5. I really like this kid out of Iowa. Physical, efficient runner, feature back size, power, dynamic, downhill guy. Uses, runs behind his pads, uses his blockers. For me, my number 4 running back is TreVeyon Henderson's running mate at Ohio State, Quinshon Judkins. This is a guy that proved it in the SEC with Ole Miss, proved it in the Big Ten with Ohio State. 2 totally different schemes as far as what they asked him to do, and he excelled in both. One of the most naturally gifted running backs, I think, as far as his movement and ability, really quick feet. And he's a guy that when you watch the tape, he just creates out of nothing. It doesn't look like there's much there, and all of a sudden, boom, it's a 6-yard gain. Boom, it's a 7-yard gain. And it didn't look like he had anything there, and he creates it. He has 3-down versatility, which always is going to push you up the rankings because he's a guy that can stay on the field. Even when you go into hurry up, you're not going to have to worry about him being out there. He's decisive. Scheme fit, like I said, hard to say what the perfect fit for him is, but he's versatile enough that I think he can be a contributor for almost anybody. Big fan of Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah, I'm a fan of him as well. Again, like you said, this is a deep draft. This is another big kid, bigger than TreVeyon Henderson. Like you said, his running mate, he's at 6 feet, 220, whereas TreVeyon's a more 5'10", 209 type of guy, a little scat back, little speed back there. They run a similar 40, but to your point, Quinshon Judkins does deserve a look. He's not in my top 5, but he does have the production coming from Ole Miss. He has 3 years of production, 2 years at Ole Miss, and then this 1 year at Ohio State, 1,000 yards every single year. So this guy has been a bell cow, and he's been durable throughout his college career.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's round out the top 5. Alex, who's your 5th running back in the draft rankings here?
Now, this is the one that's going to surprise some people, I think, because I have R.J. Harvey as my 5th back. And he's smaller back. He's 5'8", 200 pounds. He's definitely the definition of a scat back, but once again, the production at UCF that he had, those 2 years that he played, the last 2 years at UCF, 1,416 yards, 16 touchdowns, 1,577, 22 touchdowns, and then of course he could catch out of the backfield. Now, I'm not going to say he's going to be anything near with the other gentleman that we spoke about a little bit earlier, but as a person that you can have with a 1-2 punch, similar to what you've seen in Detroit and other places, in the way this NFL is going, as they probably in the next year or so, we're going to get to an 18th game. This is a guy that can hold up. He's not great or elite at it, but he can definitely hold up on third down plays. He can be an outlet on a third down play, and he can also pass block on a third down on a play as well. So I think the production that he's shown at UCF and how that can translate if you get him to a guy like a Sean Payton, if you get him to some of these, Andy Reid, some of the things you saw him do with a Jerick McKinnon, what this guy could do in that type of offense, this guy would be a key part to any team that's striving to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I really like his game, man. And you definitely surprised me with him because I think a lot of people, the consensus, have him a little further down. But once again, really, really loaded running back class. So a guy that, maybe isn't on a lot of people's top 5, but a really player. I'm a big fan of him as well. My number 5 running back might surprise you as well, though. I went with Cam Skattebo out of Arizona State, your guy. I know you loved watching this kid last year in college football. Basically put Arizona State on this guy's back. I mean, he is a throwback player, man. A power back, elite toughness, grit, elite balance. This guy is so hard to take down when you watch the tape. Just breaks tackles at an incredibly high rate, does all the dirty work as a blocker, just a guy that plays the game angry. I love his attitude and the physical toughness that he showed. Now, not a home run hitter. He's got good speed. He doesn't have breakaway speed, but he's definitely a guy that makes up for it with that tone-setting style and elite running ability after contact. A guy that can take a 3-yard gain and turn it into 6. Just a really, really fun player to watch. And just the guys that just missed the cut, the 2 guys for me that just fell outside my top 5 were Caleb Johnson, who you mentioned out of Iowa, really good player. And then Dylan Sampson was another guy that I considered cracking the top 5. Didn't quite get in out of Tennessee. Just really elusive, quick burst. Not as complete of a player, and that's why he fell out of my top 5. But I think he's a guy that could be a really good rotational piece in the NFL next year.
So let me ask you a question. We usually talk about some people that might be right outside the top 5, but let's talk about 2 guys that a lot of people are not talking about. Those 2 running backs from Michigan, why have they been falling? Because when you look at a lot of rankings, they have really fallen down a lot. I mean, I'm talking about behind the Trevor Etienne's, behind the Devin Nails, behind the DJ Giddens, and even Damian Martinez of Miami. Mullings and Donovan, who a year ago, prior to we were talking about Donovan probably being if not the best running back coming out this season.
You know, I think it's just the depth of the class, because you just named a bunch of guys. There's like 5 or 6 other guys I can name that nobody's talking about that are really good. The kid out of Syracuse, LeQuint, really underrated prospect. Jordan James out of Oregon. Nobody's talking about this guy. Really good player. This is probably the deepest running back class I've ever evaluated since I've been doing this, Alex.
Yeah, and I think this also goes to the point of, if you listen to the narrative that was for the last 2 years over running backs, well, it's just simply that the college system is giving the NFL a lot of running backs, and usually only one can fit on the field at a time, whereas different than wide receivers where you could put 2, where, like we talked about it earlier, Brad, 11 personnel, so you need 3 out there. Sometimes some people run 2 tight end sets. However, when you have your running back is usually the only guy out there, and nobody's using a fullback anymore, except maybe Miami and San Francisco for the most part. So yeah, that's why it looks like the running back position has been devalued. I don't think it's been devalued. I just think the college has given us so many that you can wait and still get great value in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounds.
All right, let's jump into our top 5 edge defenders. This one's going to be fun. I'm really curious to see who your top 5 is, Alex. I'm going to start with number 1, and it's a guy who, I'm making a lot of people upset on the internet right now, because apparently people are realizing that I'm not as high on Abdul Carter as the consensus, and we've talked about it. I'm not going to belabor the point here, but look, I like Abdul Carter. He's my number 1 edge defender because I think he has tremendous upside, sideline to sideline speed. I think he's a guy that might actually be better as a weak side linebacker than he is as an edge defender. As great as he is, as far as his bend, his just quick twitch explosiveness coming off the edge, he's a guy that can be absolutely disruptive at the next level, but there's a lot of red flags for him compared to where he's being viewed as this quote-unquote generational prospect like we've talked about, Alex. I just don't have him that high. I think he's a really good prospect, but I think there's a lot of holes in his game that people really aren't talking about, and I'm surprised that it's not being brought up more in the rest of the draft media, because I don't think he's nearly as good as what people are making him out to be. He lacks any type of power rush. It's all speed for him, and he has really no counter move at all. It's just the quick bend around the edge, and that's really all he has. So he has a lot of work to do at the next level, because you're not going to be able to just going to get away with that week in and week out at the NFL. But look, he's got a ton of versatility and very explosive and disruptive, and I think you can line him up at multiple places. So he's going to be a valuable player at the next level.
I think it's a weak edge draft. Edge rusher draft to begin with. Doesn't have a lot of guys. I think Abdul Carter is the best of the bunch and has the highest ceiling of the bunch. But Brad, once again, I agree with you. I say it all the time. Whenever you tell me somebody's generational, it's my job to put him in his proper place. So it sounds like we may be talking down on him. It's just, no, he's not generational. The only thing that looks like Micah Parsons out there is the number 11. It's not his game. Micah Parsons went into the NFL as a middle linebacker, and they just happened to say, we need an edge rusher. Can you do it? And he went and did it. And he was already better, having never done it at Penn State, doing it at the NFL level. And now we're watching Abdul Carter do it at the college level and not look good as Micah Parsons, who had never done it at the NFL level. So you're not the same, and it's okay. We're just saying you're not as good as that guy. So that's all that's being said here, but you're still the number one edge rusher in this game. And you said weak side linebacker. I say, obviously, if you put him in a 3-4, I think you'll see some of the things that people are looking for as he develops. Well, he's still undersized, and he's not the bull rush or anything. Have the strength that Micah Parsons had, since that's the line they keep drawing. It's going to take some time, but he'll get there if he continues to work at the craft.
Now, a guy that I really like, and we've talked about when I put out my top 20 big board rankings, a guy that cracked the list, even though he wasn't on the consensus for a lot of people, and that's Mike Green out of Marshall. This guy is really fun to watch when you put on the tape. Explosive first step, has really nice bend, high production player, and a guy that showed out at the Senior Bowl. Relentless motor, which I love. Great closing speed. I mean, this guy, I don't know why more people are not talking about him. I think he has the potential to really be a good player at the next level.
I actually had at number 2, and at the last minute, I flip-flopped them from Mike Green from 3 to 2, simply because I said, you know what, I can never deny a guy that has a motor. Because anybody that has a motor is going to eventually get to the quarterback, regardless if they have the greatest moves or not. Because Max Crosby came into this league. He's not Max Crosby. People, calm down. Max Crosby came to this game with not the best moves, but he had a relentless motor and developed along the way. And that's always going to work in the NFL no matter what.
So are you saying you have Mike Green at 2 as well?
Yeah, I have Mike Green at 2. I had him at 3, and right before we started, I put a little arrow flip-flopping him because I remember saying, you know what? Because I was close on the 2, but then I said, I like Mike Green's motor more.
Yeah, he does, man. He plays hard 100% of the time, and I love guys like that for sure. At number 3, I'm really curious to hear who you have, Alex, at your third pass rushing spot.
Well, I'm interested too, because we're going to see how I do with pronouncing his name. Donovan Ezeruko.
Oh, my gosh. Out of Boston College.
Yeah, out of Boston College. Like him a lot. Again, a guy with the motor. A guy that has 4 years of production. You know, he had a little dip last year in 2022, and then came back in 2023, and then came back in 2024 to go back to what he had done in 2022. I took everybody around the world there for a moment, but I liked where his production has come. Another guy that is relentless, another guy that's smaller, does not have a lot of power. Depending on where he goes, so let's just say, for instance, take this for instance. If he gets drafted by the Bengals, who are nothing but a power offense and going to be playing from ahead, you would hope a lot with all the firepower that they had. What about putting him in that quote-unquote Dwight Freeney role and have him develop, and hopefully that new defensive coordinator can help develop him, because he doesn't have the power, but he definitely has the bend. He definitely has that quick first step and the speed. And because for the most part, you're going to be playing, it's going to be a track beat out there. So he's going to have a lot of opportunities to do what he does best.
So I got to reiterate this. We did not tell each other who we had in our rankings. And maybe we should have had a pre-production meeting here, because at number 3, I have Donovan Ezeruko out of Boston College. I can't believe we have the same rankings here. I absolutely love this guy. Absolute technician. And, you know, we talked about Abdul Carter and the upside and how he needs to develop some counter moves. This guy is the most polished pass rusher in this class. I'm not even sure that's debatable, because this guy wins with technique, on top of the fact that, like you mentioned, he has the quickness, the bend, and really good instincts. But this guy really knows how to play the game. Quick read and react, and a really good defender against the run as well. I don't think people are talking about that enough. A very, very complete football player. I am really high on this guy. The more tape I watch, the more I like this guy's game. So yeah, we're definitely aligned here on the top 3. Alex, let's go to number 4 and see if we've got any differences. Who do you got at your number 4 pass rusher spot?
At number 4 I did another flip-flop from 5 to 4. I have Shamar Stewart. So here we get the first true defensive lineman. And he could probably play outside, but this is the first true guy that you could say is not going to be, you could talk about between a 3-4 edge rusher. He's going to play with his hand in the dirt. A guy that's 6'6", 290. He has some versatility, but I like that size. I like his weight and being on the line, being on the edge. A guy that can play the run as well as play the pass and be basically a 4-down lineman as well. I want to see more power for him for the size that he is. I need to see some more power from him to get strong at the point of attack, because he has the skills to rush the passer, but to be the fine-tuned defensive end that I believe he could be at that size with that wingspan and able to reach out and grab anybody, he needs to get a little bit stronger for the run game, because he's going to probably be facing perhaps some pulling guards, or you know how that works when you got to go against those guys and they run those stretch plays, and how he's going to have to hold that point of attack. So I want to see him get stronger, but I think he has the ability to and the work ethic.
Yeah, so Shamar Stewart is actually my number 5 in this class. And it's really a guy that, to your point, freakishly athletic. And when he showed at the Combine that this guy has some rare numbers that he put up. Powerful hands. I like his backside pursuit speed. You watch some of the plays where he can chase down running backs from the backside, and really does, I think he does a better job maybe than you're giving him credit for as far as converting speed to power. He actually has, for his size, because you mentioned this is a hand-in-the-dirt defensive end, a little different from some of these other guys as far as his physical makeup, but he has the rare ability to dip the shoulder. For a guy his size, you don't see guys that have that type of ability. But the big glaring red flag, and the reason he dropped down to 5, even though some people have him really high on the list, is where's the production?
The sack production, yeah.
It's alarming. For a guy that has these kind of traits and a massive ceiling, I don't know why the consistency hasn't shown up on the field. And so anytime you have a guy like this, these are the guys that you like to call workout warriors, Alex. I hear you use that term. Is this a guy that will ever be able to put it together at the next level? I don't know. If he does, and somebody can unlock this guy, he's going to be special for sure. But that's why I have him slid down the rankings, because there's something clearly missing here. Maybe it's scheme, maybe it's fit, maybe he wasn't being utilized the right way. So it'll be interesting to see his career play out in the NFL. But man, the upside is there. Maybe the most upside of anybody in this class, and that includes Abdul Carter, by the way.
It sounds like you just decided Tyree Wilson. I'm triggered. So let me ask you a question really quick, though. Do you think with his size and frame, he could be in the
Yes. And when it comes to that, you're never going to have big sack numbers in the 3-4.
Right.
And so from that standpoint, you talked about holding the point of attack, taking on blockers. It's being disruptive in a different role when you're talking about that. I think about some of those guys that played in Pittsburgh for so many years, the Brett Kiesel types, and the guys that, if you can find a team that plays that type of front, he could be a really good fit. Actually, now that I think about it, Pittsburgh might be a really good fit. Now, my number 4 ranked player, because I gave away my 5 player, obviously, I've got Shamar Stewart there. And number 4, I have Michael Williams out of Georgia. Now, I know you're not very high on this guy, Alex, and he's a guy that he's kind of polarizing in the sense that I've seen people that have him all the way up at number 2. I've seen people that have him way down at 7, 8, 9. It's a very wide range of opinions on him. What I like about him is that power bull rush. I like guys that have power to collapse the pocket. And once again, a great motor. A guy that really stays after it. He's relentless and a very strong, consistent run defender as well. Something that maybe doesn't get talked about enough. We all like to look at the quarterback pressure rates and the sack numbers. And look, those are kind of the flashy stats when you're talking about these guys. But this guy can defend the run. NFL prototype frame. This guy was a 5-star player coming out of high school. You can definitely see it on tape. Played in the SEC, big-time competition. And I think he's a physical tone setter with some scheme versatility in his game. And so those are the reasons why I bumped him ahead of Shamar Stewart, because I think he's another guy. I don't think he's in the same group as this top 3. I think there's kind of a tier once you get past this top 3 guys that kind of drops down to this next tier. but I do think Michael Williams in the right fit could be a really good player at the next level.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan, and I guess maybe because a lot of the times I was watching Georgia and I was supposed to be looking at him, Jalon Walker just kept flashing across my screen and my eyes just went directly to him for obvious reasons. Number 5, and I did struggle with this one, James Pierce. Out of all of these guys is probably the most interesting edge rusher prospect because 2 years ago, this guy was being talked about that he could possibly be the number 1 pick in this draft that we're coming up now. And now he's basically been mocked anywhere between 16 to 32 for some of his character issues, for some of his motor issues, which showed up this year, which is why he is dropping the way that he's been dropping behind the Mike Greens and so on and so forth. When he initially came out, was ahead of them coming into this season, but the character issues along with the laziness that some people thought that he had this year and not wanting to play quote unquote injured or hurt, whichever one you want to go to. And then there's still some chatter about something else that's out there. Who knows? We'll find out on draft night. I don't know, but I know why he's dropping. But again, a guy like this in the right system, Ravens, with the right people around him, I believe you can get what we thought we were going to see coming into this season and then projecting into the draft. I think if he goes to the right team. Again, this is all about projections, but it really has to be the right team. And I'll just say this, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Raider fan, but even a Pete Carroll, a guy that's a motivator, that's a player's coach, that knows how to get, or Mike Tomlin, those type of coaches that know how to motivate and get the best out of players. That's the type, and I think you can get that out of James Pierce and get to the peaks that we thought he was headed to coming into last year.
Yeah, so just to close this out, I had James Pierce and Jalon Walker just outside my top 5. Those were my 2 guys that just didn't quite crack it, even though I like both players. James Pierce, I have at number 6. The motor's a big deal for me, and I don't like guys that take plays off. That's a big red flag for me. And so that was one of the things that we talked about with some of these other guys. Like Michael Williams, look, I know you don't love the guy, but the motor's there, and I really like that about his game. He is a relentless pass rusher. I really can't stand guys that I feel like aren't giving it 100%. And for him, when you see him out there at his best, he is a elite player with elite burst and great closing speed. I mean, he closes the gap quickly when he's coming in on a quarterback or a running back. Just needs a more complete body of work, I think. But this is a guy that has absolute edge 1 upside. Keyword here, upside, in the right system. I think you're absolutely right with that. Now, Jalon Walker, like I mentioned, just outside my top 5 as well. Just a freak athlete. Like you said, kind of pops off the tape when you watch Georgia games. I think he's a guy that has linebacker edge, kind of hybrid traits, which, look, in today's NFL, I think is really valuable because we see a lot of these kind of hybrid complex defenses. We see a lot of teams that are going into spread sets and high up-tempo offenses where you don't always have time to get your sub package in. You need a guy that can kind of move around like a chess piece. This guy checks that box for sure. So one of those guys that I think if he kind of refines his pass rush a little bit, he could be a really good player too.
The reason I probably would have kicked James Pierce for Jalon Walker because I love Jalon Walker, the leader that he is, but because they had him, most places had him listed as linebacker. I kind of skipped over that. But you mentioned a few guys. I'll mention the one, Shamar Stewart's teammate, Nick Scorton. I like him a lot. All the production that you were talking about, Shamar, that he didn't have, Nick Scorton did have, and he's being looked at as a number 2, and that could be to the size weight thing that we saw with Shamar that people going for. And then 2 other people I want to mention. One is Jack Sawyer. I think he's being underrated, and people aren't talking about him a lot. And then the one sleeper guy who I have to give credit to, one of our guys we speak to football a lot, John, he had mentioned this guy, and then I went and looked at the tape. Landon Jackson out of Arkansas, 6'7", 280 pounds, a guy that when I watched him at the combine and then I went and looked at the tape, he's all up and down that line. He can play all 4 positions. He can also play in a 3-4 or 4-3 or kick inside if you have another guy out there. He's an interesting prospect, very raw from my perspective, looking at the tape, but there's some talent there.
Yep. Yeah. In that scheme versatility, it's huge. I think a lot of coaches now, they see that scheme versatility. I think For some coaches, it matters more than others. It's going to move guys up the board. But yeah, this is an interesting class. It's going to be really fun to kind of see how this whole thing plays out on draft night. But guys, if you like this episode, go ahead, hit that like button, show us some love here on Pint Glass Football Podcast, and do us a favor, subscribe, rate, and review. Check out the audio podcast. We're putting those out regularly as well. And hope you guys enjoy this episode, and we'll catch you next time.